Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Prime Live. And up next, I have a very amazing conversation with Amira Asvat, and we will be talking about spring cleaning your finances. Now, Amira is a dedicated lecturer and a certified financial planner who will be sharing valuable insights, on spring cleaning your finances. It's a very interesting title, and I'm really, really interested in finding out how one can do that. Now, with her expertise in financial planning, Amira will guide us through practical steps to organize, simplify, and also optimize your financial situation. Now, whether you're also looking to declutter your budget, manage debt, or plan for your future, she is someone that is worth listening to at this very moment. Let's welcome Amira. Jazakallah so much for joining us, and welcome to Prime Live.
Jazakallah for having me.
You are most welcome. Now, can you tell us, what are the most common financial mistakes that people make, and how can they be addressed?
I think the first one is living beyond your means.
Okay.
People try and live beyond their means, and people try and do what everybody else is doing. They get into debt, they take out credit. I think that would be the first one. Second would probably be not saving enough for your emergency fund. I think also part of it would be not saving enough for retirement, or not saving early enough for retirement. Also in there would probably be your budget. Your budget will definitely come into play for that. And yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, how can someone also create a very realistic budget that balances their savings, their expenses, like you mentioned, saving up also for your retirement?
So you need to look at your budget, and you need to first see what is your income versus what is your expenses, and go with your expenses. Obviously categorize it into your most important to your least important. So you do it from most important to least important. So if you need to start cutting down, you start cutting down from the bottom going up. Also try and see, obviously everybody's budgets will be different. It goes according to what your income is, what your expenses are. So some people might have a huge surplus, some people might not have a huge surplus. If you are in a deficit, then there's a huge problem. And then you need to definitely see a financial planner. So also with all the things that I've just mentioned now, with the living beyond your means, and not saving enough for retirement, not having a big enough emergency fund, that also comes down to your financial plan. Do you have a financial plan? Speak to a financial advisor. Try and sort out a proper financial plan to put all of these things into place.
Now, what if someone who's watching right now comes up with I wouldn't say it's an excuse, because it's a reality of what we live in, to say in South Africa, a lot of people are underpaid, so they can't even, live within their means. Like, it's literally hand to mouth. So what advice would you give to someone like that? Because then where do you save the money that you don't even have?
So that is a difficult one.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it is a reality.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know the economy that we're in right now. And yes, you're absolutely right that there's a lot of people who are living just hand to mouth, month to month, and it is very hard.
Yeah.
So I would say, firstly, start with your budget. See if there are unnecessary expenses that you are incurring, something that you can maybe start cutting down on. If you're living within a household, are other people contributing to it? Can somebody else take over some of your expenses? Can you start sharing expenses? That kind of thing. When you start writing things down, it starts to make a little bit more sense, because you might not realize how much you're spending on entertainment, for example. And this is something that we bring up in all the workshops that we do when it comes to budgeting. We say always, always, always put in a line item for entertainment, because everybody spends money on entertainment. So put in the line item of entertainment, and put in the amount that you're spending. And only once you write down will you actually realize, oh, I'm actually spending a lot on something where I know I can maybe try and save. So start by cutting down on easy things. If you are buying takeouts 5 times a week, maybe try and buy takeouts three times a week, for example. It just try and see where you're spending your money. Is there a way where you can maybe not spend so much on something else? So another key factor here would be debt management. There's a lot of people who have debt, a lot of people who have credit cards, a lot of people who have loans, whether it's loans from institutions or banks, or whether it's from private funded people. So try and look at what is the interest rate that you are paying on it. Is there an institution that can give you a lower interest rate? Because if you start shopping around and you realize that, okay, I can actually get a lower interest rate somewhere else, and if I take out my loan there, I'm actually going to pay less. So that saving in your interest rate could be something that could maybe bump up your surplus now, or something that could maybe give you a surplus in your budget so that you can look at putting that towards something. We're coming to the end of the year now. A lot of companies might pay out bonuses. A lot of companies might pay out 13th checks. You might get some extra money in. If you've got a huge amount of debt, rather put that money, or consider putting that money into some of your debt. So if you've got a lot of debt and you now suddenly put, a bigger capital sum in, it's going to reduce your monthly premium. So that also could increase your surplus, or that's the amount of money that could give you the surplus in your budget that you're looking for.
Most definitely. And I want us to talk about the importance of an emergency fund, and if you can maybe provide strategies that people can start, you know, implementing in their money so that they can be able to save up for an emergency fund.
So the norm is to have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 times your monthly expenses, and we know that's not a reality for everyone. Okay, I mean, because 3 to 6 times your monthly expenses could be a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you need to look at your own budget and see how much money can you save, or how much money is left, firstly, after you've paid off all your expenses from the income that you have. So like I said before, if you don't have enough money coming in to pay for your expenses, and you're having to keep borrowing money to pay for your daily expenses, there's a huge problem. So you need to relook at your expenses, relook at your income. Is there another alternative? Can you get another income? Can you get a second income? Is there something else that you can do? So having an emergency fund is very important, because it takes away the stress of having to go and borrow money. So in the event that an emergency does occur, you know that you've got that safety net. Yes, I've got that little bit of money. I can afford to pay for, if it's a medical expense, for an example. Is giving peace of mind to say, if something does happen, I know I've got this little bit of money that's saved there. I don't need to go and borrow it from someone else. But then also, you need to classify what is an emergency. Because you can't say, I've got an emergency fund, but oh, now there's a sale on at my favorite store, and now I'm going to dig into this. Because once you start tapping into that savings, it's not going to stop. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm just going to take from here, but I'll put it back. I'll put it back. And you don't put it back. I mean, I think there's very few diligent people that will actually go and put the money back. So you need to mentally train yourself to say, these are emergencies, medical emergency, if something happens to your car, for example, real emergencies, and that's what it's for. So whatever you can save towards an emergency fund, try and save towards it. I mean, you can start small. Even if you feel like, okay, I've got 100 Rand to save away, put that 100 Rand away. In a few months' time, you might be able to save 200 Rand. In a few months' time, you might be able to save 500 Rand. So try and start saving whatever you can towards an emergency fund, because it'll just save you from going and taking out another loan from a bank and having to pay that loan back, having to pay interest on that loan. So it'll basically give you peace of mind.
Most definitely. And how often should people review and update their financial plans to stay on track?
So annually you should update your financial plan. But also, if there are certain instances that happen in life, so for example, if you get married, you should relook at your financial plan. You should definitely update your will, your beneficiaries on certain policies. If you have a child, if you get divorced, major life-changing events, if that happens, then you should go and change your financial plan, because that's going to affect everything. So look at your financial plan, look at your will, and then also the beneficiaries.
Most definitely. And I want us to talk about, any specific financial tools that you can share with our viewers, or like resources that they can use, to better their money management.
So there's a lot of companies that do offer, or that do have tools on their platforms. So if somebody wants a specific tool on something, you could just Google it and it'll give you a whole list of companies that do it. But I know, like for example, the Financial Services Conduct Authority, they've got a lot of information on their website about general consumer education. ASISA also has some stuff. The Financial Planning Institute has some stuff. So all of those, and then also the big investment houses. So your Momentums, your Discoveries, your Sanlums, All Mutual, all those companies will have tools and will have a range of information that you can access.
Now, I like that you mentioned that people should look into their financial plans yearly, or if any major thing happens, like for example marriage. And I want us to talk about that, to say how best can partners try to kind of merge their financial worlds so that there's more harmony and also their financial plans are in line. Because I can't be going left and he's going right when we're living in the same house. So what advice would you give to couples like that?
You need to talk about finances before you get married.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
Yeah.
Because finance is a big thing, and it's something that's gonna play a huge role in your life and in your partner's life and in both your lives combined going forward. So you both kind of need to be on the same page of how do we want to run our finances. If you guys gonna decide you're gonna run your finances separately and he's gonna run his finances separately, are you guys gonna run it together? Are you guys gonna have a joint account? So that's all gonna depend on the two of you. And then also, before you get married, choosing a marital regime will also influence everything that you're gonna do going forward. So whether you're gonna get married in community or property, whether you're gonna get married out of community or property, there's a lot of financial decisions to be made when it comes to your marital regime and going forward. So if you, for example, decide you're going to have a joint bank account,
Yeah.
you both need to have access to it. You both need to know how much each of you are contributing to it. Are you guys going to go 50-50 on all expenses? Are you going to pay for certain expenses? Is he going to pay for certain expenses? So all these things need to be spoken about upfront, and decisions need to be made upfront, because you don't want to get married and then you had a vision in your head and he had a completely different vision in his head, and now you guys are like on completely two different pages. What now? So before you get married, you need to talk about this and iron these issues out.
Most definitely, it's very important. And I want us to also speak about, recovering from a financial setback. It could be through, job loss or whatever it is that might have happened. How do you recover from that? Because for you to get to a point where you are now able to properly plan your financial life after having a setback is very difficult, because you probably have so many debts to pay. It's like you're far behind. So how do you get on track?
That's a tough one, and a lot of people are suffering from that in today's day and age. We see it a lot. There's a lot of things that you can put into place when you are employed. So if you're employed and you decide to take out an income replacement policy, should you lose your job, there's obviously certain instances where they will pay you out. So if you have, a lot of people take out disability, there's disability and there's severe illness cover that you can take out. So if you do become disabled at any point, a policy will be paid out to you, or you can be paid out monthly. And the same with having a severe illness. So there's those things that can be put into place, but obviously that is when you are working and you do have money to pay for it. Once you lose your job, it becomes hard, because now who are you dependent on? So if you've got that kind of cover in place, all well and good, because now you're not going to become a burden onto anybody else. But if you don't have that in place, then you need to just take a step back and relook at all your finances. So number one, go back to the budget. Is there any income coming from somewhere? Is your spouse going to help you? Do you have family members that are going to help you? Do you have money saved away somewhere else that you can use? So firstly, look at what income you can get. Then you're going to look at your list of expenses and you're going to see, okay, are there any expenses that I can get rid of, that I don't have to pay? Most of the time it's not, because you still have to pay for everything. Just because you're not working doesn't mean that all your expenses are now gone. And then you look at the type of credit that you have. So can you afford to take out credit? Is there somebody who's willing to give you some sort of loan for you to pay back when you do get employed? Or what are you currently paying that you can cancel? Can you get a lower interest rate somewhere else so you can start saving a little bit of money? So you need to look at all of those things, and then see, from the like, do I need to borrow money from someone, or can I get another job somewhere else, because, or is there something that I can do to earn income? Something where I don't need to get a job, but I can do it by myself. So can I sell something? Can I make something and sell? How else can I get some form of income? Do I have an asset that I could perhaps rent out? Maybe you have a house somewhere else, or property somewhere else that you could maybe rent out and get income, or sell off assets that you're not using. So if you've got, for example, a second car that's just standing in the yard, or that you don't really use a lot, maybe sell off assets that you're not using to just try and generate income.
Most definitely. I mean, Amina, this has been such an amazing conversation. I wish we had more time because there's so much to cover still. But inshallah, we'll have you again next time so that you can educate us about the importance of, setting your financial life on track and making sure that you are a responsible person. So Jazakallah so much for your time.
Jazakallah. And also, I just want to add that
Yeah.
whatever that I've said tonight does not
Yeah.
constitute as advice. It's just us having a conversation,
Yeah.
and it's just me making people aware, and trying to educate people on financial matters. So if any of whatever we speak about does pertain to anybody who's listening, I advise you to please go and speak to your financial advisor as soon as possible.
I mean, Jazakallah for the disclaimer. Viewers at home, this was Amira Asvat, and we were talking about spring cleaning your finances. I hope you found this discussion very insightful, very educational, so that you can be a responsible adult and make sure that you are making responsible financial choices so that in the future you're set. But on that note, viewers at home, it's time for us to head over to a quick break. We'll see you after this.